Welcome to the Friends with Benefits podcast, a business podcast about revenue-generating partnerships, not a podcast about business time with friends. We're your co-hosting couple. I'm Jason.
And I'm Sam. Welcome to the show, friends.
Hello, friends. Welcome back to the show. We're so great to be here with you. We've got a lovely guest today. Along with Sam and I, we've got the Katie Penner
One
from Sendoso.
And only.
Whew, there is none like her.
Oh,
Katie, welcome to the show.
I'm so excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
We're so glad that you joined us today. It's going to be a ton of fun. We're looking forward to learning a bit more about yourself, the work you're doing, and you're now the second person that's represented Sindoso on the podcast. Braden, if you're listening, Braden Young, we'll get you eventually. Don't worry about it.
Eventually.
Just let him be jealous. Let him see
That's
that.
right. That's right. So we're stoked to learn a bit more about you, like I said, and kind of jump in. But with that, Katie, tell us a bit about yourself. What is the old head of Sender Relations at Sindoso do, which is your title, which is a little bit different, and I'm here for it. So let's talk about that for a second.
First of all, do you know anybody else that has this title? You're the one and only.
Oh, the one and only in the world. So that's an interesting flex, right? And I think to fully understand this role, I kind of need to give a bit of backstory. So
Please.
I started at Sendoso as an SDR in 2021 and landed my first big promotion into a lifecycle marketing associate role where I had the opportunity to revamp our sequencing and get us from 2 to 3% top line reply rates up to 20 to 26. And I was able to create direct mail campaigns that ended up generating 26x ROI. So they were really successful. Then got promoted again into an SDR management role. And during that role, CSM started to ask me to come on calls and train their customers on what messaging they should be using and how to gift properly. And we saw a lot of success with those training calls. So I was promoted again into a head of sales development strategy and enablement role. Also probably was the only one of those in the world, where I was focused on enabling our customers, sales and sales development teams, what messaging they were using, how to gift without being icky and bribey. And while I was in that role, Casey Jenkins joined Sendoso as our SVP of marketing, right? And as Casey got to know Sendoso, she started to take notice of what I was doing with my personal brand on LinkedIn and wanted me to do that for Sendoso and kind of serve as this chief evangelist for the Sendoso brand and lead social effort and direct mail programs. So that's my focus now, is getting the Sendoso brand out into the world and ensuring that anytime someone thinks direct mail, they immediately think Sendoso. But of course, the things like copywriting and training our customers still come into play a bit. So, it's kind of a full hat role here. There's a lot going on.
I love that so much. I mean, I think this is a really interesting conversation because literally all of us have direct mail experience. So that's unique
Yes,
and fun.
Yes.
You kind of talked about this, but tell us about the word relations in your title and how direct mail directly impacts having relationships and the emotions of, our prospects, our customers, our friends, our partners. Like, what does that mean for you?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think for me personally, like actually having a significant relationship means, especially in business, caring about the human first before the transaction. Right. And I think that direct mail is a really beautiful way of showing that you care about the human. But really, as I've kind of discovered this whole LinkedIn community and different partnering with different brands and, this whole new world of things, I think it really just all starts with building friendships and then opportunities kind of come from there naturally. And I mean, when we think about the brand impact that these actual relationships have, right? Whenever you form a friendship, like we've been able to form, right? We get emotionally connected in some way or another to our brands, right?
Yep.
And so I think it's interesting seeing that impact. And there's actually statistics around this. Customers who are emotionally connected to a brand actually have a 306% higher lifetime value, and they recommend brands at a much higher rate, 71% versus 45%. So there's really significant impact that this relationship building can have in business.
What is it about the gifting that you think like creates that much higher lifetime value? Like, what is it that's? I mean, because we've all received swag, right? We've all
Mhm.
received something from somebody, but still, even though it's been going on for a long time, like, what do you think it is about that that creates that emotional connection?
Yeah, gosh, it's a good question. I mean, I think it's just the way that you break out of the norm, right? I mean, I think as a buyer today, it is exhausting. We're dealing with buyers who are experiencing buyer fatigue like never before with the rise of AI automation and, just having your
Ten
inboxes
thousand
slammed.
messages a day.
I mean, I was so stunned when I went from, an SDR, an individual contributor, to this head of title. And it did happen pretty fast, right? But I realized like how insane it feels to be a buyer. I have 20,000 unread emails in my inbox I cannot keep up. And
Same.
that doesn't even count my alias, right? So there's like all these emails that I just can never get through. There's countless DMs, as you guys know. Your phone has to stay on silent. So someone taking the time to send you something in the mail that's personalized and relevant to you, it stands out in a way, and it just shows that you genuinely are taking time, which I don't think a lot of people feel these days. I don't think buyers feel like they are being actually thought of, because the majority of the messaging they're getting isn't personalized. It's not
Mhm.
tailored to their needs at all. It's not relevant. So when you're able to break through that and show
Yeah.
them that you've done your research not just on their company and their company's goals, but also into them as a individual human being with thoughts and feelings, it makes a significant impact.
Yeah, I like that you can pretty much curate the experience, right? Curate in the sense that like we're going to serve up all the things that are, you know, relevant to you, something that means something to you. We're going to communicate in a way that kind of speaks to you more clearly than just like, "Hey Tom, noticed you were on our website last week." No, but like we're going
Yeah.
to send you, something from Sendoso via the Amazon connection, right? That means something to you because we saw it on LinkedIn post, or we're able to, have a more personal conversation in LinkedIn because of, something we saw or read and actually, took the time to communicate on. So in
Mhm.
a sense, like for me, I feel like, direct mail is creating that more, curated experience that actually brings me in and wants me to engage with your brand. And there's also a lot of it too. It's like, the Cialdini book, Influence. He talks a lot about the law of reciprocity, right? We get something, someone gives us something, we feel the need to reciprocate in some sense,
Mhm.
right? So we
Yeah.
kind of got a good hook on them to reciprocate, by taking a meeting or by saying thank you or posting about it or whatever.
Yeah. And I think it's all about the approach too, right? Because we talk about the law of reciprocity a lot in the customer trainings that I do. And I think there's a right way to leverage the law of reciprocity in your favor, and there is an ineffective way, right?
Okay,
And
let's hear something about this.
the ineffective way is saying like, hey Sam, in exchange for your time I'll send you $100, right? It isn't as effective. It's bribey. It's
Yeah.
not great. So what I teach our customers is like, let's separate the relevance of our outreach from the personalization. And a great way to do that is like putting a gift offer in a PS. Hey, PS, Sam, saw you host a podcast, wanted to send you this podcast equipment, right? So it's just kind of a side note, like, hey, I've done my research on you, but this isn't tied to you giving me your time. This is just an additional add on. So, that can help. And I think also just positioning a gift like, hey, let me know if this sounds relevant at all, or if you and your team are dealing with this, and I'll send over lunch on me today, right? Where
Yeah.
you're asking for something a lot softer, we found is effective.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to go back to something you talked about at the beginning. It's all related, but obviously this is a partnership podcast with relationships as the like foundational reason why we started it. And you
Mhm.
talked about the importance of relationships and how there's actually an ROI behind it. I've sat in a similar seat, and it's much easier to track, like, okay, we sent so and so this gift, they converted at this rate, and there's an
Mhm.
actual like life cycle to follow. In partnerships, it's not always as clear of like, oh, I have a relationship with this person and I know it's driving ROI for our brand, for our company, because we've put in the time, we've built this trusted relationship. What are your thoughts on that, and how like partner people are going to the table they're doing exactly what you said. Like,
Mhm.
before we're friends, there needs to be revenue.
Yeah.
Sometimes that doesn't play out.
Yeah, it's tough. And I think that exactly what you just described is a similar kind of feeling that I am going through now and building these relationships. There's no way to accurately track like how these relationships are converting directly to revenue, right? It's so tough.
Mhm.
And I think the only ways to really do that, and well, so far the only ways that we've been able to kind of track the impact, is by using tools like Gong and highlighting
Yeah.
keywords like,
Yeah.
whether it's your partnership person's name that's brought up in a call. How often is this person's name being brought up? How often is our partnerships program being brought up? Right? The how'd you hear about us for maybe an upgrade, opportunity could be that. But it is difficult. And I think you need serious buy-in from leadership, senior leadership, that relationships are at the core of business. And if you don't have that belief, that core belief, then you're going to have a lot of trouble kind of justifying these efforts, I think.
Totally. And I'm the first to say you should have a strong attribution model. You should have a strong tracking system, because if you can't speak in numbers, you don't have a seat at the table. But a lot of times, those conversations are happening at cocktail hours in LinkedIn DMs, and they're not showing up in Gong. So there has
Yeah.
to be some gray area and some flexibility to be able to move that forward for sure.
Yeah, I don't think there's a way of avoiding the gray area. I think it's definitely figuring out how to, also make these people your advocates, and, to share and be excited that, they are partnering because of you and because of the relationship that you've formed with them. And that happens naturally too,
Hmm.
where they just become your champions and you become theirs. And it's this really beautiful, like mutually beneficial relationship. So, it's just trying to get to that point, and just constantly advocating for maybe those gray areas and bringing those up to C-suite management and saying like, look, this is the relationship that I've built with this company, and here's why this is impactful in the long run. And just kind of advocating for yourself pretty consistently, I think, is key.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a ton that has to be done. Like we're all trying to solve for attribution to both of your points, and getting ops involved to kind of take a look at like this is the work that's actually being done in the market. This is the value we bring to the table. These are the champions. These are like I see you doing a ton of work with your Sinfluencers and the influencer space there. You were talking about advocates and champions. So like, in your opinion, are influencers the ultimate friend with benefit?
I would say that the right influencer partners can be the ultimate friends with
Can be.
benefits, right? I think you have to be very selective. And a lot of brands these days, in my opinion, maybe this is a hot take, the majority of them are doing influencer campaigns the wrong way.
Okay,
So
let's hear it.
again, the right influencers can be the best friends with
Yeah.
benefits. Happy to
What is
dig in there.
what does it mean to do it the right way?
Yeah, so I'll start with how people are doing it the wrong way and how we've kind of positioned it to be better. Now, traditionally, companies will reach out to influencers and say, "Hey, we'll pay you $500 to post this script on this date at this time. Right. And that's the relationship. It is extremely
Right.
transactional. It is, you're not allowing these brilliant creators who are, have a following for a reason. They're creative people. You're not letting them kind of add their own spice and their own opinion to your product. And half the time they maybe aren't even using your product, which is a problem.
Big
So
problem.
when we like started thinking of this influencer program, it was after I had kind of dove into the LinkedIn world and I started making all these influencer friends and understanding the voice that they have, right? They have these amazing platforms and people do trust them. And so I started thinking about it and I'm like, well, we can't do it that way because as a brand, we believe in transcending the transactional. So how could we rightfully do that? Also, it kind of gave me the ick to think of anyone promoting our product that didn't actually use it. But, I didn't want to be limited. So I decided that we were going to partner with people, even if they weren't Sendoso customers, and just create free Sendoso accounts and load money into their accounts every month so that they were actually using our product. And then we were never going to script anything. Right. So we
Nice.
aren't scripting anything that our Senfluencers say. Of course, with big launches like our Smart Send launch recently, we'll say, hey, we're launching this on this date. If you want to make a post about it, great. You know, but it's very much up to them what they post about, what excites them, because ultimately, right, I think when we're in our own companies, we have these kind of orange colored glasses here at Sindoso where we say Smart Send is the best thing in the world. But if that's not what excites a recruiter, maybe it's one of our party links that excites that specific kind of person and that's his audience, then that's what he should be posting about, right?
Mhm.
Right.
So the freedom has kind of been amazing, but it all starts with the people, right? You need to get to know these people and have someone building relationships because there are people in this community, as both of you know probably, that are not who they say they are. And so it's
Oh yeah.
very important to be hyper protective of your brand and to get to know all of these people first and foremost before you're associating them with your brand.
I love that
Let's
so much.
Yeah, I'd love to hear more of your take on that. I was like, how would you encourage a brand to really get to know someone that they're considering as an influencer to really
Yeah.
kind of read their book, so to say, to know if it's the right person or not?
Yeah, so you should not even talk about it at first and try to just have someone like me go out and build a relationship with them and see if that person's going to be standoffish because they have, 200,000 followers. If they are, it's probably not the kind of person you want to partner with if you're a brand like us that's built on relationships, right? So I would say like have a marketer go out and reach out to these people and, have coffee chats, get to know them, maybe meet up with them at an event in person. I think it's so important. I am very, very protective of this brand. I would almost argue that Sendoso has become my personality to a certain extent. And, that's from really amazing leadership and opportunity. But yeah, I
I
think
mean, you've
you
got a
need.
neon gift queen sign in the background, so you're becoming one.
I do, and that was a gift from one of our amazing sponsor or not sponsors, partners, Comsor and Katrina Redden, who again is a perfect example of like getting to know someone and forming a relationship, then being like, oh wait, our companies kind of make sense together, like
Mhm.
Yeah.
whoa. And getting at it from there, not starting with that intention, right? The intention is just like, I want to make friends, I want to connect with like-minded people, and then that stuff kind of just falls into place naturally, which is great.
I'm so fascinated by this because you literally are doing partnerships. It's just a little bit different of a lens than like you just talked about it, but you're backing into it from an individual level rather than a company level. Your example with Comsor is spot on. Like,
Yeah.
and I think it's a fascinating lens for partner people to take too, of like getting to know the individual, understanding what makes them tick. And is that somebody that you're actually going to be able to do business with and want a relationship with? Because if not, the brand to brand is never going to work.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I obviously don't have any partner experience either, and I think it's
But you do.
but now I do,
Yeah, you
right?
got it.
And that's interesting though, because that was never the intention of this role. It just kind of happens so naturally. And I think another thing that we think about, and that I've had to consider is that there's larger brands that are wanting to partner with us, but that don't kind of meet our brand ethos. So it's how do we start to say no to maybe these larger brands and just focus and really narrow in on maybe smaller partners, right? That
Mhm.
are just getting started, but that makes so much more sense from a brand perspective. So it's been really fun to kind of figure out and learn and grow there too.
Can I ask you now, I'm just super curious of the parallels between what you do and like a partner program, because in my mind they're the same. But how are you measuring the success of what you are providing to Sindoso?
Great question. So it was really hard at first, and there was no way to, if I'm being brutally honest. There was all that I had was LinkedIn analytics from a company standpoint. And what
Mhm.
that will show you is, how are you stacking up against your competitors with followers and engagement, right? But there was nothing directly tying me to any sort of PLG signups or demo requests until recently. Recently, a few weeks ago, we added a How'd You Hear About Us portion to our PLG sign up form and our demo request form. So now, based on like pretty limited data, admittedly, over 50% of our PLGs are coming from some sort of social related effort. And then at least 30% of our demo requests are coming in through that. And that doesn't
It's incredible.
include referrals. So, it's arguably higher than that, but that's mainly how we're able to track it now. But,
And just to be clear, we're talking about the Sendoso page, not the Katie Penner page.
honestly, both. I mean,
Okay.
I think that my brand as a human being, I was never posting on LinkedIn to get a following. I've never been interested in being considered an influencer, quite frankly. I just wanted to kind of humanize our brand a little bit. Everything has always been about the brand. I mean, I'm Sendoso through and through. And so when I started posting, it was very much like I wanted to promote Sendoso. And a lot of the things that I post about are related to building relationships, deepening connections, gifting, how you can do it effectively, etc. So all of that, anything that comes through, word of mouth or LinkedIn, etc., is kind of coming from a combination of my LinkedIn, Casey's LinkedIn, Sindoso's. I mean, it's all the different channels.
It's an
Do you remember the
ecosystem.
moment that it kind of like clicked for you on LinkedIn to say, okay, I need to invest more heavily here and kind of get stuff going because A, we are humanizing the brand, and B, it's making a difference.
Yeah, so I started posting a little less than a year ago. And it was when I moved into that head of sales development strategy and enablement role. At the end of all of my trainings for our customers, I would tell them to connect with me on LinkedIn. And I started realizing, okay, all of these customers and their SDR teams and AE teams are now connecting with me, hoping to get some, inspiration, some templates, some learnings. So I got to step it up. I got to start to post this kind of stuff. And so that was kind of why I started, was like, I'm asking you to connect with me, but I'm not posting anything. I need to like give you something to look at.
That's pretty incredible. It's like less than a year is not a long time in social media time, right? And I think there's a big lesson for anybody listening out there that's curious about LinkedIn is like you really got started by just sharing what you were learning and sharing and really intentionally sharing value on the platform. And that
Hmm.
began to result in people recognizing who you were, your brand being built, and then therefore beginning to, what you said, humanizing your brand. But it all started with like value. And people always ask, how do we get started posting on LinkedIn? What should I be doing? How do we grow an audience there? And like you just nailed it. Is that you just start sharing what you're learning and make it valuable for others who can learn from you. So like there's
Yeah.
a huge opportunity there for anyone listening to do this a year from now. So next February.
Yeah. I think one of the things that I struggled with when I first started posting was feeling like the things that I knew were obvious and
Mhm.
like kind of battling that because it's like,
Mm,
oh, well, obviously you shouldn't lead an email with hope this finds you well. And obviously you shouldn't gift this thing to this person. But what's obvious to you isn't obvious to others, and others can
right.
learn from your learnings. And so it's so valuable to share that knowledge, even if it feels like second nature to you. So
Yeah.
hopefully.
Man, I
We
think that's so powerful. That's become increasingly obvious, more obvious in my current role. Like I'm consulting other partners on how to be successful in the Salesforce ecosystem. And exactly what you just said, I found to be so true. It's like, oh, that's not common knowledge for people. Okay. And I think what people are asking you for help on, or what people come to you with curiosities about, is such a leading light to like, this is
Mhm.
where I can truly add value, and kind of put down the imposter syndrome for a second, because it's not second nature to everybody.
Yeah, yeah. Imposter syndrome. My God. Imposter syndrome has also been something absolutely wild that I've had to deal with. And I don't know that imposter syndrome ever truly goes away. I think you just learn how to overcome it and deal with
yeah.
it and potentially even channel it. But yeah, I think it's interesting because I'm asked a lot about this like rapid progression, right? I've been at Sendoso 3 years, SDR to now this head of title. Think that's pretty darn quick. And now it's like people are putting me on top creator lists and I don't even feel like I'm really creating compared to some other people. And so it's just this wild roller coaster ride of emotions when it comes to imposter syndrome. So
Let's talk
Yeah.
about that for a second, though. Like, you just posted a really awesome, vulnerable post about exactly that on LinkedIn. Like,
mhm.
how do you channel that using your words on a daily basis and get over it?
Yeah. So I think for me, it was at first, right? It was getting on my first stages and speaking at SaaStr. That was the most surreal feeling ever because I was surrounded, like that room was packed. And that was the first time that I ever didn't doubt that I deserved to be on a stage. And so that's kind of the evolution of, kind of turning this imposter syndrome into confidence. And I think the real key is understanding that anytime you feel that way, it's because you're growing and
Mm.
Hmm.
you are, moving up into the next like realm of confidence and what you can achieve. Right. And so I think that like fully understanding that that feeling was actually a good thing and not a bad thing has really helped me to maybe not overcome it fully. Like I still get the nerves. I still, don't really particularly like being on a stage, but but ultimately like I'm so glad that I do those things and they've progressed my career. Every time I felt that way, I have in some way or form grown as a human being or in my career. So,
I think that's really good, and also another good point to learn from is that really the only way to grow is to actually do right. And there's a whole concept around you teach yourself more by talking about the things that you know or that you're experienced in, and you begin to learn more kind of about yourself and what you know as a result of putting this content out on LinkedIn, as a result of taking these stages. And the more you do so, you begin to build that confidence factor. But it's got to start with just posting. Like Sam and I both have been doing this social media thing for almost 10 years. And like I used to do it for a living. I still get the imposter syndrome. I still slack Sam's like, you think this is a good post? You think I should put this out there? Like we still deal with it. We still battle with it. It never goes away, but you kind of begin to figure out like, okay, I'm not completely lost here. I'm not completely crazy here because you're beginning to build these cycles. You're beginning to build this repetition. It's like working out, right? You have to stress the muscles for them to grow in working out. Kind of the
yeah.
same to be true in your own personal growth. You've got to stretch yourself to grow a little bit. And It sounds like, from your perspective, that's kind of what's led you to, being comfortable on stages, being comfortable, putting all this content material out there, that you're just actually doing it and figuring it out as you post.
Yeah, yeah, and I think there's power in vulnerability too, right?
100%.
Like, I mean, I get very vulnerable on LinkedIn. I talk about those feelings of imposter syndrome and not feeling good enough, and how I got over that, and all of those things. And I feel like people really resonate with that vulnerability. And I'm a very open book, so that's kind of helpful on LinkedIn as well. I am down to share whatever. I will tell you about all the times I have fallen on my face and failed more than I'll tell you about my wins, right? And I think that that helps people that maybe aren't feeling like they're doing well enough, or that they are the only ones doing these things, because there are creators out there that just constantly post about wins, and it's just not realistic. So
Hmm.
I think keeping it real has been pretty helpful as well.
I think that's so spot on. And you've used this term many times in terms of the brand and you, but humanizing the experience and channeling your imposter syndrome to be like, I'm also just making this up as I go. Like, I think literally we all forget that, but no one knows what they're doing. And if they say that they do, they're making that up. Like, that's not real. So,
So true. Yeah, no one does. It's actually kind of eye-opening. It's been eye-opening, right? I've had so many coffee chats and so many like interactions with marketing leaders, sales leaders, VPs, C-suites, and really everyone is just winging it and kind of
yes.
throwing darts at a wall where they think they'll stick. And I think there's more strategic ways to throw those darts, of course, but like,
Right.
at the end of the day, that's what we're all doing. Such a good
Yeah.
point.
Yeah. So I want to shift from like, I think we're all believers in like individual brands and what that can do for individual personal brands and what that can do for your company brand if you work for a company. How are you encouraging like holistic brands today to embrace this and get like individuals at their company to post without it seeming inauthentic? And what would be your advice there?
Yeah, so I think my advice, and when we go back to this whole concept of like brand loyalty, right? We know statistically that building these deeper connections work. And unless you encourage your employees, your, leadership team to be active on social media, or whether it's, communities, right? In Slack, whatever the case is, wherever your buyers are, you should be encouraging that. And humanizing your brand leads to that loyalty, the more referrals, right? Getting where your buyers are. I mean, it's just so powerful. Um, and honestly, when you're talking about, being more active on social too, you're also exposing your brand to a whole plethora of new people that maybe didn't know about you before. And,
Mhm.
that also kind of ties into influencer marketing. I mean, we've been reaching an insane amount of people through the takeovers, the Senfluencer things that we do, and even our own posts, just because they're reaching a broader audience, because they're not, oh, hello, we are Sendoso and we are hosting X event at this place. Like, that's all we used to post, and no one would ever engage with us. And so we weren't top of mind when our buyers thought about direct mail, but now we are, because we're everywhere. And so I would encourage you to just try it and to see the effects, the natural effects that come from putting your people out into the community.
So in our show notes, we had kind of wrote something about building trust at scale and kind of a little bit different approach to that. But do you feel like that allows a brand to build trust at scale by really encouraging their teams to get out there and get active on social, and to kind of use a concept from earlier, like enabling them to be authentic on social as
Yeah.
well? Is that a way brands can build trust at scale?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, buyers today, like, just naturally, we kind of have our walls up, right? And so if you're, never going to show me who you are as people, I'm not going to understand or think that you are trying to sell me something because you genuinely think it's going to help me. I'm going to think that you're selling me something because you have a quota and you want to get paid.
I'm on your
Right.
target list.
Yeah. So it's like, whenever you have me and Chris and Casey and Braden posting about Sendoso and talking about our fails and how we haven't succeeded along with the wins, right? You're able to see this human side of us and think that we are decent people that would not lead you astray, right? So I absolutely think that it builds more trust within your communities and with your buyers.
I also think you said you talked about how now we're everywhere, and like the math works out. The more people you have talking about you, yeah, the more places you'll be, rather than like a singular marketing team sending one message. I think that's just obvious. And I also, like, a light bulb went off for me. Like, we all have our DMs just blowing up on LinkedIn, but if an SDR reaches out to me with an immediate sales pitch, it's a hard no. Like, I'm not even going to open this email. But if you send
No.
me a LinkedIn request and you're like, "Hey, saw we were in this group together, would love to just like get to know more about you." Your chances of getting my time are so much bigger. And like,
Yep.
that's the play.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I think that, when we when we talk about that, it's the pitch slapping has got to go. It is insane.
Amen.
I don't know a single person that get demos booked from pitch slapping. It's just
Right.
crazy. But yeah, I mean, just like you said, that approach where they're like, "Hey, hey Sam, saw that you're attending this event next week. They can be exhausting. Grab a coffee on me today." Right? With no ask. Like, it's so nice. It's just, it stands out. I mean, there's so many ways to just build those human connections and like actually get in touch with buyers and not sell them up front, because immediately, like you said, it's going to go into an unread folder and you're never going to look at it again.
Your 20,000
Yeah,
emails.
Yeah, exactly.
exactly. And I think too, like to the human factor, like these influencers or these influencers, these networks that are out there now that are sharing messages from brands, as long as they're, to your point, empowered to be authentic and be themselves, like they carry a certain trust factor because of the human element, right?
Yeah.
There's a little bit of psychology involved, like, oh, they don't work for the company, they're talking about the company, they're human, we like this person, right? You think about the, I don't know, Tom Slocums of the world, right?
Hmm.
Very, very nice guy. Very, he comes across as very authentic and genuine and vulnerable online. He starts posting about a brand. People have to think that he's not just going to tie himself to just anybody, but something that actually means something to him. So, like that human factor that he's already built within his voice, community, and network, kind of
Hmm.
resonates throughout when he starts talking about the smart send, or
Yeah.
as Sendoso Pinata, or whatever it might be.
What'd
Yeah.
you guys call it? The monkey? No, the llama donkey
Llama
dog?
Donkey
Llama
Dog.
donkey dog.
Yeah.
What team were you on? You were on Team Llama, right, Jason?
No, that was, so we were talking about it's at the Six Sense Breakthrough event. Sendoso had the pinata out, and it was undetermined if it was a llama or a donkey. I think I was the only vote for Llama Donkey Dog.
Oh yeah, you were a
I'm team
combination of.
llama.
Me too. Well,
I would be Team
uh,
Llama.
I switched. People are going to listen to this and be like, "You were not Team Llama." Initially, I was Team Donkey, but then I got swayed to Llama. So,
You can
who
you can find
knows?
the
Influenced,
pinata
rather.
on the Sendoso page, I'm sure, and you can vote for yourself what you think it is.
Yeah, yeah,
So
absolutely. But
to
that brings up like kind of a cool point though, is like we always try to do fun things that kind of break through the noise and just form relationships. Like you were there, Jason. You saw
yeah,
that, at our booth, we weren't just, sitting there waiting for people to approach us. We had that pinata out and we had like a tally.
yeah,
We wrote on our actual booth a tally, and people had to come by and like vote for what they wanted. And if they wanted to continue to figure out what we did, great. But we just wanted to have fun with people that were there and get to know them. And,
yeah.
I think that is kind of right on point with all of this is
No, that's it. And I
relation.
think you and Casey have talked about this before, and that creating delightful experiences, or how do we make this more delightful? right? And you
Mhm.
guys are focused on the experience, not so much the outcome of that experience,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, sorry, go ahead.
No, I mean,
No,
I
but
think you're absolutely right. I mean, we just want to make everything as fun and delightful as possible, and we think that a natural kind of, result of that is going to be people wanting to learn more, getting curious, wanting to, send gifts because it looks so fun, right? And we're seeing that that works as long as, like, you make it fun and delightful. There's this natural curiosity.
Well, no one
yeah,
wants
and,
to send gifts with people that are grumpy and mad. Like,
yeah,
That's very true. It's very true. Shouldn't
very
be
but
much
that
that's
way.
in.
like the thing is, we say that like it's so obvious and jokingly, but when you actually look at the way brands are going to market, it's not fun and delightful. It's very
Right.
like buttoned up suit and business. Like nobody wants to do business with people like that. We are all human.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And our brand, especially, and what we do, like corporate buttoned up suit doesn't match what we do. Like
Yeah.
it doesn't make sense from a brand perspective. Like, even if we're selling to these massive corporations, which we are, and we're doing it successfully, even if we're doing that, it still doesn't match. If they're in a suit, it doesn't matter. We can be in a pinata costume and it makes sense for our brand and what we do. Right. So it's just kind of shifting that, like, we need to be overly professional all the time because we definitely don't. So,
yeah. I think too, like everybody outside of work and what we do in a day job, like we all just want to be a part of an experience, right? We all want to experience something, whether that's a new place for the first time, right? A new experience of whatever you want to call it for the first time. And anytime you can create that sort of experience, for a customer, that doesn't make it feel like some sort of packaged cadence or packaged outreach. Like you've got a moment of engagement there that
Mhm.
people kind of want to, that'll make them stop for a minute, right? We used to talk about it, direct mail, like the mail moment, right? That mail moment in direct mail is like when you literally stop for that, 1, 2, or 3 minutes to open that package. Like, we used to always joke that direct mail has 100% open rate, right? Because it's that mail moment. You stop in time to open the package or the envelope to see what it is, and really all it comes down to is that experience you're creating for your customer.
right. Yeah,
And I
I
think we
couldn't
just
agree
we miss
more.
out on that so often.
Yeah. I think it's also like there's a really cool point to be brought up here where people also just want to be a part of something.
Mhm.
So
Okay.
community is huge. And if you look at a brand like Comsor, right? Like they've just started to, post on social media, kind of send out those purple hoodies, right? And the language that they're using with the community is like welcome to the herd, and making people feel like they're a part of something, a part of their brand. And it's a really cool way to build that trust and build community and get people involved and want to encourage you and your brand to succeed. So I think it's a combination of kind of all of those things: the experience, the community, the relationship building. It's all so important.
Yeah, there's
Love that.
there's a good opportunity out there right now to kind of take the B2C approach and have a little bit more fun with your brand and more fun in building a community and not be so, like to your words, corporate, right? Take the suit off, put on some jeans, right? And like
Yeah.
develop a message that people want to actually engage with.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
how my last question that I'm curious about, and then we'll bring this home. Um, and not that I pulled this anywhere, but how do you, Katie Penner, encourage brands to be so good that they can't ignore you?
Ooh, um, I think the biggest thing is to just be authentic, right? You have built this, you've built up your team because of their personalities. Let that shine. Don't let that corporate kind of lingo take over. Trust your people to market your product and market it well and creatively. Allow for that creative freedom. We just posted a video today where Cody Farmer had a product used VR to send a gift, and it was the silliest video, but
Nice.
it's delightful, right? And it's fun. So I think just have fun with it. Let your people be heard. Don't hold them back from posting on social media and getting vulnerable. And just build relationships and focus on that first before the
Mhm.
transaction.
Yeah.
That's the biggest kind of underline highlight here is the human comes first, the sale comes later. And
Love
that's how we
that.
should all be approaching business today, I think.
Yep. Couldn't wrap it up any better. So with that, we'll bring it home with our final question.
All
We
right.
we both do a lot, meaning friends with benefits, Sendoso, Katie Pinner. We all do a lot with our friends, Grove Cookie Company.
Yes.
Got to know, what's your favorite Grove cookie?
So my favorite Grove cookie is a flavor that is not quite out yet, but it is
Oh shoot, hot
coming.
take.
It is coming in March, and I'll give you guys the exclusive. It is going to be called the Sendoodle, and it is a snickerdoodle
Ah.
cookie, and it is absolutely delicious.
Okay,
So
wait. This is coming full circle because on our episode with Grayson,
I was about to
we
say the same.
literally asked about snickerdoodles. That's Jason's favorite cookie. And he was like, doesn't happen, doesn't exist.
yeah, no, we
Here we
made it
are.
happen. And it's going to be a Sendoso exclusive. They'll have it available in
Love
March,
that.
but after that, you can send them through Sendoso.
Love it. We
I
will
know.
be sending ourselves some cinder doodles.
Yes, yes. I'll send you guys some for sure for having me. Thank you so much. This was really fun.
Katie,
This
this
has been
was
a blast.
so fun. Absolutely. Thank you so much. If you don't follow Katie, go do it right now. She truly does embody everything we've talked about today. So thank you for the time, Katie. We appreciate you immensely. You are a friend of the RB household. So appreciate
That's
your
it.
time.
100%.
Thank you guys.
Thank
Friends,
you.
we'll see you next time.
See y'all later.